I want to thank the Olam that our musicians. It adds all the difference. Yeah, you could give them a hand of applause. Thank you very much. And whoever got these candles, Shkaya, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's I love the cell phone thing, but this does add a certain elegance to it. On Shabbos, one of the things we say in Kabbalah's Shabbos, apparently it's a very, very important part of Shabbos, is that Shamar v'Zachar b'dibur echad hishmiyanu keil hamiyuchad. That Shamar and Zachar were said in one dibur. Hashem told us to remember Shabbos, Zachar, the mitzvah saseh of Shabbos, make Kiddush, do all the positive things of Shabbos. And Hashem said Shamar es Yom HaShabbos, which is what it says in the second time that it says the Aseres HaDibros in the Torah, to watch Shabbos, to protect Shabbos, meaning not to violate Shabbos, meaning the Loisa says to be observant of the Loisa says of Shabbos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said both Zachar and Shamar at exactly the same time, in the same breath, in the same word, Zachar and Shamar. And as much as that's a miraculous thing to do, to say Zachar and Shamar in the same word, we certainly want to understand why that's important and what that has to do with us. And believe it or not, it's very, very related to the Yisaidos of Parshas Toldos and very related to our lives. The last pasuk in Parshas Toldos tells us that Esav saw that his parents do not like the Benois Canaan, the women of Canaan. That didn't make him get rid of his wives from Canaan. He just ended up taking another wife. He took Machlas Bas Yishmael Achos Nevoyos. He took Machlas, the daughter of Yishmael, the sister of Nevoyos. And Rashi says on that last pasuk in the parasha, why does the Torah have to tell me that she's the sister of Nevoyos? If he tells me that it's the daughter of Yishmael, that's the important information here. Why does it have to say that she's the sister of Nevoyos? And Rashi says to tell you that by the time she actually married Esav, when it was Nasan Einov Lekadsha, when he decided to marry her, she was the daughter of Yishmael. But by the time he married her, she was only the sister of Nevoyos. Yishmael had already died. Why is that important? Why is it important for us to know that when Esav reached out to marry the daughter of Yishmael, Yishmael died before the chasana? Why is that information important? And to understand this, we'll go from the last pasuk in the parsha back to the first pasuk in the parsha that we talked about a little bit earlier today, where the first pasuk in the parsha describes the chiddush that Avram Avinu was the father of Yitzchak. And we explained, I'll just say now Bekitzer in a sentence or two, that the reason why it was such a chiddush that Avram was the father of Yitzchak was because Avram's midah was dramatically different, almost the opposite of Yitzchak's midah. Where Avram Avinu was expansive and connecting, Yitzchak was more inward focused and standing apart. The midah of Ava and of Chesed versus the midah of Yira are not just two midas, they're two opposite kaichas in the kaichas hanefesh of a person. They're two opposite characteristics, two opposite personalities. The Ava person is the one he's a connector, he's reaching out. It's a spreading out, it's a stretching his arms out, moving forward. The person that has Avas Hashem is moving closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, expressing his love for Hashem. The person who has the midah of yira, of awe, those of you that are emotionally sensitive, that have an EQ, an emotional intelligence, can understand that the midah of expressing love and the midah of expressing awe are not just two midahs, but they're an opposite reaction in a person. Awe is pulling away, is pulling in. I'm in awe of you. I don't feel connected. I'm separate. I'm smaller than you. I'm in awe of you. It's just a different kayach in the kayach hanevesh. It's an opposite kayach. that Avram and Yitzchak were father and son was the chiddush that we learn in the first pasuk in the parsha, that it wasn't that Avram was Ava or Chesed and Yitzchak was Din or Yira. It was that Avram was an Eved Hashem and Yitzchak was an Eved Hashem. And Avram developed, and that's why they were perfect father and son. They were exactly like each other. They were both servants of Hashem. But Avram developed his koichos in this manner, and Yitzchak developed his koichos in this manner. Now, there's something interesting. When Ava operates without it being perfectly blended with Yira, so you could have a chisaron, it can go too far. And when Yira exists without Ava, it also can go too far. And while, of course, as individuals, Avram and Yitzchak both had Ava and Yira, but since Avram represents pure Ava, a kilkul of Ava, a destructive effect of Ava could be inappropriate relationships. While relationships are a result of Ava, when that Ava is misplaced, is twisted, like when the Midah of Arayas, of Znus, that's a twisted Ava, it's a twisted Chesed, it's a corruption of Ava, it's a kilkul in the Midas HaChesed, and that's represented by Avram's son Yishmael, that the Gemara tells us that the Yishmaelim were Shtufei Zima, because they inherited from Avram that Midah of Ava without it being tempered properly, to say, okay, there's a limit. There's a limit. You have to know your boundaries. And on the other end as well, when you have yira or strength, that certain kind of strength and conviction, that also can go off the other end. If it's not tempered, it could become so strong that you become a kaisan, an angry person. You could become a dangerous person. You could become a murderer. And that's why Esav came out from Yitzchak. Esav, the son of Yitzchak, was the kilkul of the Midas Hadin. But by Yaakov Avinu, who absorbed from his grandfather the Midah of Chesed and Ava, and he absorbed from his father the Midah of Yira and of Din, as I mentioned earlier, when the pasuk says Yaakov ish tam yoshev oihalim, the Medrash says that the oihalim, tents, plural, is be'ahaloi shel Avram u'be'ahaloi shel Yitzchak. That Yaakov absorbed the lessons of Avram and Yitzchak, and that's why Yaakov Avinu, Chazal tell us, was mitasai shlema. His children were perfect. There was no Yishmaels among his children. There was no Esavs among his children. Because when the koyach of Ava and the koyach of Yira are perfectly balanced and blended together, then you have perfection. And that's the Shvatim. That's the Shvatim of Klal Yisrael. Now it's interesting that there's a special hashgacha that the ability of the Midah of Ava and the Midah of Yira to live together is something that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give. They're such opposite Midas. They're so opposite than each other that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give that. In the natural world, it doesn't really exist. It's a stira. You either have Ava, you have Yira. You could temper your Ava with a little Yira, but then while you have Yira, you don't have Ava. And while you have Ava, you don't have Yira. How do you expand and contract at the same time? It's impossible. And that's why when Esav wanted to marry the daughter of Yishmael, which was the attempt of the distorted Yira to connect with the distorted Ava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that Yishmael died before that chasana could happen. Esav and Yishmael cannot combine. The midah, the kilkul, and the olam hazeh, the sinful midah of Ava and the sinful midah of Yira cannot combine. It's fascinating. Many, many years ago, I heard my Rosh Yeshiva say, there was a time, it was the middle of the Oslo Accords, many years ago, during the Clinton administration, and I heard my Rosh Yeshiva talk about the fact that the Western world, the United States, Europe, was moving towards the Arab world to create connections, treaties, to create bonds with them. Nowadays, it's the Abraham Accords. Back then, it was the Oslo Accords, but it was the same idea. And he said it can't happen. Yishmael dies before Esav marries Yishmael's daughter. There can't be an alliance. Okay, it could look like an alliance, there could be a surface alliance, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure that the world of Esav, which is the Western culture, and the world of Yishmael, which is the Eastern culture, that they can't combine. I thought it was just a statement from my Rosh Hashiva or from his great Rabbeim, but about a year ago, a close friend of mine showed me that it's in a sefer of Divrei Torah from Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver, who was a Talmud from the Beis Medrash of the Vilna Gaon, from the Beis Medrash of the Gra, a great Makubal, a great Talmud Chacham, and he says this idea that Ava and Yira only connect in us. Only we have that. Yeah, only we have the connection of Ava and Yira. The Umay Sa'ilim don't have it, and you see it, by the way. Think about it. I think we've mentioned this before. Goyim understand a party, right? They understand a party. They get it. Geschmack, ava, music, fun, reaching out, they get that. They understand Yira. They understand a solemn time. They have churches, they have mosques, they understand solemn. They do not have a clue how to mix the two. They do not have a ceremony that could mix the two, and you and I do it every Shabbos when we sit by a Shabbos meal, every time we have a Purim Suda, every time we dance on Simchas Torah, and we're so careful with awe of the Sefer Torah, but we're dancing with such joy. What we have, I always think of this moment as the moment of the end of Ne'ilah. When the Ne'ilah is over, Hashem Elokim, a day of such tremendous awe, and then we start singing, and as the joy of Sukkot starts. We Jews are the only ones that are able to actually experience the expansion of Ava and the care and caution of Yira at the same moment. Only we have what David HaMelech says, V'gilu bir'ada, rejoice while you're trembling. Who could do that? Who has the power to rejoice while they're trembling? Only we, children of Yaakov Avinu, who was able to merge the limud of Avram and the limud of Yitzchak. You know, it's an amazing thing that if you think about it, in life, in Olam Hazeh, there are things that we absolutely need, and we take for ourselves because without them we will die, like bread and water, right? Bread and water are a basic thing. If you have it, if you have it, you will live. If you don't have it, you won't live. You know, food and drink. Then there are things that people indulge in that are absolutely not necessary, like fine wine and a expensive cut of meat. They're absolutely unnecessary completely. They're pure luxury. Okay? The more luxurious something is, it almost means it's less necessary. Right? There is that inverse relationship. Right? You know, the more expensive and extravagant something is, the less necessary it is. But the Mefarshim point out that in Avodas Hashem, there's such an interesting thing. By tzaddikim, by Talmidei Chachamim, when they learn Torah or do mitzvahs, they feel like, I have to do this. If I don't, I will die. Is that Ava or Yira? That's Yira. Right? That's Yira. That's caution. That's care. That's responsibility. That's, I better do this. I have to do this. I'm worried to not do it. At the same time that they engage in Limud HaTorah, because I know that without this I will die, at the same time they engaged in Limud HaTorah with a joy and a geshmak, as if it was the Tainug Shabbat Tanugim. There was nothing more luxurious. There was nothing more enjoyable. It's amazing. They're the only Klal Yisrael has that. That the same thing that, like, I really need this, so I'm going to die without it, is exactly the same thing as this is the most enjoyable thing possible for a person to experience. That mixture is because we're children of Avram and Yitzchak merged together in the unbelievable Avodah of Yaakov Avinu. That's the beauty of our Yiddishkeit. So that's why Yishmael dies before Esav can marry Yishmael's daughter, but Avram and Yitzchak together raise a Yaakov that could enjoy Yiddishkeit with a sense of, I need this, I must do it, I have to be a achroi for this is necessary, a midah of yira, and at the same time, I love this, and I get so much from it, and it gives me so much koyach. At the same time, the ava and the yira together, and that, Rabbi Zai, is the depth of Shamar v'Zachar v'Dibur Echad. Shamar and Zachar, which is Ava and which is Yira? Zachar is Ava, the mitzvah Aseh is Ava, the mitzvah Lois Aseh is Yira. That's not just our opinion. The Ramban says so in Parashas Yisro on the pasuk of Zachar es Yeva Shabbos L'Kadshay. Many of you may have come across it in learning Aseh Doicha Lois Aseh, right? Because the Ramban references Aseh Doicha Lois Aseh there. But in any event, the Ramban says that the Aseis are Ava, and the Lois Aseis are Yira. I'm not going to violate the Ratzon Hashem out of Yira. I'm going to engage in serving Hashem. That's Ava. And and by the way, this understanding of Ava and Yira, that Ava is expansion and Yira is contraction, can help you understand that Ramban in a deeper way. But in any event, that's why when Shabbos comes and Yidden sit around the Shabbos table, and the table might be breaking under the weight of all the delicious ava that we have on the table, and the singing, and the joy, and the geschmack. But at the same time, we're so careful. Is that boirer? Watch out. I think that might be teichen. We're so careful. Shambar v'zachar b'dibur echad. At the same moment, merged together. The same moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses the ava part of the relationship of Shabbos and the yira part of the relationship of Shabbos. And that's why it is such an unbelievable schus and a delight to be a Yid. And that's our tefillah. That's what we daven to Hashem for. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please give me the insight and the clarity to understand that without you, I will die. That without Torah, I'm starving. That without doing mitzvahs, I'm withering. And please give me the strength and the sense of achrayus and the yira to engage in Torah with that full understanding. But that alone is not enough. Also, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please infuse that sense of responsibility with a sense of delight and joy that I feel like Ashreinu Matayiv Chelkeinu. I couldn't be more fortunate. I couldn't be luckier. I couldn't be in a more majestic place than to be someone who has the zchus to learn your Torah, that has the zchus to keep your Shabbos, that has the zchus to face you 3 times a day and speak to you. Yashikayach.